Welcome to Financial Freedom with the Flipping Flanagans, where we help real estate agents and already successful business professionals create legacy wealth through real estate. We go by the Flipping Flanagans, and we don't actually flip houses very often. When you drop the F-bomb a little too often, add that to a real estate background, you get the Flipping Flanagans. We actually buy property to hold and see long-term gains protected from inflation while seeing amazing benefits from appreciation and depreciation. See you on the other side.
Well, hello, we're back and excited to jump right in and start getting some plans together with you, for you. I got my wonderful wife, Jamie, here. How are you, honey?
Hello, Jamie here. We are together in the same room. That rarely happens. It's awesome.
It's Friday. There's no kids pulling on us at the moment. It's been a long week, so it'd be good to download with everybody. What do you think?
Yes.
Okay.
So honey, we've been getting questions.
Lots of them. And as usual, and from all different levels. So to me, I'm almost too detailed. I think she actually said that yesterday when she was reviewing some spreadsheet form data entry stuff that I was looking at. And so when I get into this, I'm going to throw her for a loop, and then she'll throw me for a loop, and hopefully we'll connect with those of you on the other end of this. But aside from the business setup and how do you get this in an execution stage, I do think it's going to be really important for you guys to identify your goals. In addition to the steps for executing, we want to help share ways that we were able to identify what our goals were and how to complement them with the right steps and stages in the execution phase. So what would you share or add to that, Jamie, regarding identifying or breaking up those two positions? Like, I have to figure out what I want, and then I have to figure out how to implement these activities to get myself what I want.
Yes. That actually goes really in depth with what I've been working on just in my personal life and business and our family. Is everything has to have a vision and a specific intention. Because if you don't know your goals, you're not going to be successful. And I hate to just say that like that, but really digging in and the why, like we mentioned in the first episode, is really figuring out your why are you doing this. So, and digging in deep to that why. So if it's, I want to replace my full-time job with rental income, if it's, I want my kids to have funds to be able to use for college, whatever that is, write it down, be aware of it, and then start digging in the details of how you get there. And this is where me and Brad complement each other. Is I find a property and I have this vision, and sometimes he'll run the numbers. He's like, well, that's not going to work, honey. And I'm like, but I love the property. And we go back to that vision and the goals and the intention and get back on the same page. And as husband and wives, if you're listening to this and as you navigate the rental portfolio, odds are when you start doing this, you're going to have two different visions. And I really encourage you guys to sit down and really dive into what is comfortable, what is each of your role going to be in that. And I think that's something that me and Brad have learned over the years. Like, you stay in your lane and I'll stay in my lane. And we used to kind of not know what was each other's lane.
So that creates all kinds of fun stuff in the household. So, but no, did I interrupt you there? Sorry. I remember those days a lot.
Yeah, it's true. It's like,
and the goals then change, which is going back to it. If any of you have ever set goals before, you might have heard of a SMART goal, and so specific, measurable. Did we talk about that in the last episode too? We did. So we'll talk about that again, and maybe even provide some forms on our other various social media platforms that we can actually help with getting you some tools to put goals in place or identify that plan. So fast forward, real commonly, you can break it up into two different categories. Myself and others that we participate in investing world with, you'll often hear us say it's a balance sheet acquisition versus an income statement. So is it something that we're acquiring for long-term benefits and it's going to add to the overall asset value, or is it something that you might spend a little bit more money for, and as a result you're going to get more income or more cash flow that it affects the income statement more than it affects maybe the balance sheet. So those, I think, are the main areas that we'll end up sharing strategies for. so that you can have your goals, you can have some parameters set as to the acquisition or the property or the opportunity, and then you start to implement certain activities to find those types of transactions or those types of investments and opportunities.
Yeah, and kind of breaking this into different layers. When we look at a property, or when a property is presented to us, or when you're starting to get into this and you start going and walking and touring, I'd say like evaluating the goal and what you're good at and what your strength is a number one thing to start with. And it's so easy to get caught up in what other people are doing, and or listening to a podcast or getting into a Facebook group where people are finding these smoking deals, and everything has a cost to it. So, for example, I've never personally sent out a mailer to find properties. Some people send out mailers. Some people do Facebook ads. Something that we've just naturally kind of grown into is we do get a lot of referrals for properties, or, hey, we have a client that needs to sell their property quick. Are you guys in a position to purchase it? Things like that. So you're going to find your niche on where to market and find your properties, and everything, like I said, has a cost to it. So for example, if you are not a handy person, and let's say, and I'm using husband and wife because that's who you're listening to right now, but let's say husband and wife, you both work full time, you both have, you've got kids at home, you're doing dinner, you're doing activities, you don't have a lot of time to check on that property. That's something you need to look at is from a cost perspective. Is getting a deal really a benefit to me if I don't have time to check on the general contractors, or if I don't have time to actually meet flooring people over there? All of those things you have to take into account. So that might be something where you look for a more move-in ready property and you pay a little bit of a premium to know that I can close on this house, rent it out immediately. There's not going to be a lot of ongoing maintenance, from the tenant, things like that. And we do have checklists and such that we have within our groups. So again, if you're not in the Building Legacy Wealth Through Real Estate group on Facebook, please feel free to join that group. We're growing that, and that's where we're sharing a lot of the PDFs and content that we talk about. But so yes, if you are a contractor or you do have a background in something specific, then I would look for properties that have been on the market and are needing the work that you are good at. So for example, I use this example a lot, but if there's a house with a plumbing issue and it's scaring everyone else away and you're a plumber, that's a great opportunity to take advantage, get a deal, be able to do the work yourself and actually gain some equity, as well as take on a property nobody else was willing to, so you were able to benefit from that. And a lot of times I hear from clients is, well, why didn't anyone else write on that property? Well, everyone has different reasons for different properties they're looking for, different goals. And that's why we talk about identifying those goals. Because if one person might not like anything without a basement, or with a basement because they don't want to have water issues in the basement. Another person might want more move-in ready. Me and Brad both, most of our incomes come from me selling real estate and him doing mortgage loans. So when we look at those make us the money. So finding a property that is going to be more time consuming for us isn't always the best, doesn't always make the most sense. Now, if I find a property where I have all the contractors, I know that I have a great HVAC guy and I've got a great roofer. Well, that property is going to be one that I would jump on where another person might not have taken advantage of it, because I know that I can get reliable contractors in there right away to get that property ready for a tenant. Going into like legal side of things, picking out your business name and do I need an LLC when I start? Brad, do you want to kind of comment on what you think with that?
Absolutely. So when you're doing your goal setting, part of your goals are going to be identifying your risk tolerances. So complementing what Jamie is talking about regarding condition of the property that you're looking at, you'll have a risk tolerance of how much you have available to put into a project, what location you feel is appropriate for you based on, is it on your way to work every day and can you drive by it to check on it? Or if you have teenagers that you want to help incorporate into your family investment business, is it a place where you're going to be okay with them driving out to, whether they have to take an expressway to get there or something of those nature? So you just really get down and get into the weeds with it. And then as part of your risk tolerance, most of us want to protect everything that we've worked pretty hard for. So there are ways to minimize your risk from a legal standpoint, which is creating an LLC. We are not attorneys, so we're not advising or giving any legal advice. But for us, we found in the beginning that we weren't taking on too much risk by acquiring a property, a single family home here and there, so we could put 3 houses under one LLC. And now, you had a 30% chance or 33% chance if something came up that those other 2 properties were at risk. Now, if you buy a 10-unit apartment building, now you have 10 individuals or families or households within one roof. If it gets icy and somebody slips and falls, there's a higher probability due to how much traffic is there that something might come up. So you might not want that property and another property in the same LLC, depending again on your level of risk and what your legal counsel advises. So those are areas to consider. And
and you might go into this.
I was about to go to where you're going to go.
Okay.
I think.
Nope. Go ahead.
How are you going to name it?
Nope.
Oh, I didn't get it.
He thought, but
Most
that
people,
works. See,
don't lose that train of thought. But yeah, just identify something that's going to be easy for you to remember, easy for people to write checks to, something you might be able to put on a sign if you needed to.
Yes, our first LLC I combined the address of the first property we had with my initials, and that's not the easiest thing for people to write checks to. My initials, JLC LLC, is super confusing. So just FYI. But yes, so the next thing I was going to touch on actually was your CPA and your attorney, because we went through a whole lot of different questions, structures. So identifying what your goals are and actually having your attorney and your CPA understand those goals, because if your goal is to scale to 200 units someday, or your goal is just one property, you're going to have different structures. The other thing is if you're active in real estate, meaning your full-time thing is real estate, there's benefits on the tax side of things if you're active in real estate. So that's a whole nother conversation with your CPA and your attorney. Just making sure that you do have those people dialed in. Most of the time what we were running into is the attorney had one piece of advice. We'd go to the CPA and they'd be like, well, that's not exactly what I'd recommend. And then we were trying to figure out our own way in between what the CPA and the attorney said. And it got not messy. Well, yeah, it got messy. It did get messy.
Well,
just navigating and understanding.
Conflict or contradictory theories and concepts that come into play, which then play into the revisable part of your goals. You're going to revise things. If you grow and then you have 3 different LLCs, now those are 3 different entities with 3 different balance sheets and income statements. And so getting a loan for one company when you have 3 companies that do the same thing can start to make things awfully complicated. So trying to, what you're doing right now, you're listening to people who are trying to share advice to accelerate your learning curve. Things that we've done that we, hindsight being 2020, would have maybe done differently after the experiences we've had. So, and then it's ultimately going to save you money and a few more headaches, because we definitely have incurred additional costs. And some of us will call that tuition. If you didn't go to college, congratulations, because now you have some money to spend on the mistakes that you make. And so, if you find yourself being risk averse, but you talk to your CPA, your banker, and your attorney, and maybe you get to be good enough of a client with them that you can get them all in the same room or all at the same dinner table, you can talk more productively and plan more efficiently to accomplish your goals, save yourself money, and eliminate risk all at the same time.
So I'm just going to shamelessly plug my amazing husband right now. Something that Brad is really, really good at and takes a lot of pride in is he is very good at, he interviews banks and bankers and generates really amazing relationships with banks. And that's everything from another bank in town who can't qualify somebody for a home loan, and he either analyzes it and actually can get that person a loan, or can actually look at the file and say, you know what, based on what I'm looking at, this is who you need to talk to. That's something he's just always generously provided for people. Like, hey, send it over to me. I'll take a look at it and I'll see what I can do. And what we're working through is kind of creating that consultative approach so that, and again, join that group, Building Legacy Wealth Through Real Estate, because as we dig into this stuff more, that's something that we're really going to try and dig into. Because if there was anything that I could pull out of his brain, it would be, how do we help people understand the financing aspect even better? And he just nailed it perfectly, like getting your banker, your CPA, and your attorney all on the same page and understanding your goals. So many people that we talk to are so driven on interest rate. The first thing that they think about is interest rate, and there's so much more to look at from a relationship, the banking standpoint. And this could be a whole podcast in itself, so I'm not going to take too much more time discussing it. But just that financial,
we can talk good about Brad.
Oh my gosh! But just the financial piece of it is huge, because like we have really, really good relationships, and it's allowed us to scale our business. And we've had banks, and then we've outgrew those banks. And so then we're generating new relationships. And it's been really cool to go, like, every single person who's been a part of helping us grow this, like, we're so thankful for them. But it's like, Brad was able to go and say, here's like what we have, and here's all of the, he can put everything together and really understand the full financial picture. And it's like, let's share everything and then navigate how to work with that and where we go from here based on your goals. So just kind of touching on the finance piece a little bit more. But yes, having all those people on the same page and understanding your goals is really important.
And part of what we want to help do is cross the boundaries that we work in or participate in from a geographic standpoint to help those that might be a little further away. We will do our best to make introductions to professionals that have a track record of serving those of us that have specific goals regarding real estate investing. So keep in touch, reach out to us directly, or link up with us through the social media channels to try and find those contacts that you might be in need of.
Yes. Okay, so for my final touching point that I have on my notes here is having a support system as you navigate this investment portfolio. And what that means is there's lots of people that are involved in a real estate transaction. So there's, potentially a real estate agent, title company, whoever is going to finance the property, and then vendors. And so really, if you have that organized up front, it's going to make everything a little bit simpler as you get going, because if something goes wrong with the property, you have somebody to call, and that's from the moment you sign contract or start looking at properties. If you don't have vendor relationships yet, the real estate agent who's helping you, I would definitely, that's as you're interviewing real estate agents, that's something to ask them is, do you have resources or people that can help me if there is a plumbing issue, or if there's a toilet backs up into the house, or the HVAC goes out? Like, real estate agents should have a very solid list of reputable contractors. And that's something my team prides themselves on, is we have the most amazing contractors, and they're very reliable, and they show up when they say they're going to show up. And that's helped us scale and grow our business. So, and then your bank. So before you start shopping, it's always a lot more fun to shop for properties when you can actually afford to write an offer and make it happen. So as you navigate this, it's just, sitting down and really understanding your finances. How much do you need to put down? How much are closing costs going to be? And then figuring that out. Something I like to do is I like to have my rental properties rented from the moment we close. Now, that's not as essential anymore to us as we've grown, because we don't, dependent on the cash flow anymore. But when we first started doing this, floating a couple mortgages without a tenant, it can hurt. Whereas now, we can afford to buy the fixer-uppers and know that we can put some money into it. Sorry, I don't know why my computer keeps beeping. That's one of my editing things I need to learn. Shut off all my notifications before we start the podcast. But where was I, Adam?
Just making sure that you have done some steps before you try to go and jump right into the acquisition phase. So having that LLC figured out, what's that name? Because if you're going to write a purchase contract, and there's some strategies that we'll probably get into, but you may want to have that LLC up front so that you're not amending a contract after you've agreed upon or executed a successful negotiation with a seller, or the bank might have you underwritten personally, and then you end up wanting to put it in an LLC. Are you working with a banker that can do a loan with an LLC? And are you still going to have a personal guarantee? There's some things in the weeds where you want to make sure those are set up, because if you end up, let's fast forward or do a hypothetical scenario. If you skip some of the steps, you go ahead and get with your real estate agent and you negotiate a contract, and it happened to be a little bit of a competitive one because it was a good deal, or there's other investors that had their eyes on it, and you missed a couple of steps. If those prolong the deadline that you have, you're at risk of now losing that opportunity, which wouldn't be fun, especially if it was a good one. And then we'll talk about mindset, I'm sure, where there will be things that don't go your way, or that you don't lose, or I'm sorry, that you opportunities you don't win, or situations where you feel like you might lose, but kind of conditioning yourself to know if something wasn't meant to be, it really wasn't meant to be. It's okay. It's not the end of the world, because there is more rejection, I would say, in this path than there is acceptance.
Yes. I've written many offers. It's funny, we own a property in a townhome community, so there's lots of similar properties. And I remember writing an offer, and the house was listed for $112,000. I wrote $75,000. We got it. I'm like, dang it, we should have wrote it even lower. But we got the property. We own that one still today. But then another one hit the market. I think it was listed for like $125. It'd been on the market for like 3 months, and I wrote an offer, and I think I wrote a little bit better, stronger. I think I wrote like $100,000, and the agent was so offended and like, I can't even believe you would send this to me. And I was kind of like, well, we bought another one for less. So, but you do have to like it's a business. It's not an emotional thing. And that's what I explained to the agent on the other side. Hey, I'm so sorry if we offended you or the seller. That was not our intent. We would be using this as an investment property. And so the numbers just have to make sense for us. And this is where they made sense. And then after explaining that, usually people are like, oh, okay, thank you for your offer. Whatever. I'll call you if it doesn't sell. That's actually some of the best deals I've ever gotten, is showing a property, and then the agent will call me after we leave, and they're like, hey, what'd you think? And I'm like, oh, the client wasn't really interested. So I'm showing a potential buyer, and the client's not interested. And all of a sudden the agent is like, oh my gosh, the seller's so motivated. And then, our investor brains, I'm like, all right, Brad, hey, this agent's texted me 3 or 4 times asking like if there's any way to put a deal together. Let's just throw an offer out there. So I say, any activity is better than no activity when you're doing this. And even just showing the house, we didn't put an offer in, but that activity of showing the house generated an opportunity for us. I'm going to leave it at that, because I just take action and very much set your goals and figure out where you want to go. And we really appreciate you listening to this podcast, and we hope that you'll subscribe, and definitely send us over your questions so that we can address them, because that's how we're navigating this podcast right now, is when we get a question after listening to us, we are just going to address it in the next podcast, because we know if one person has the question, so do several others.
Sure do. Get them every day, and then we'll continue to try to make it linear as well. So taking ourselves back to the beginning, sharing some of the pros and cons of what we've done and what we would have done differently if we were back where it all started.
Yes. So thank you guys so much for listening. We'll see you next time.
Have a great one.
Thank you so much for listening to today's episode. We hope you'll hit that subscribe button to stay in touch. Also, join our Facebook group at Building Legacy Wealth Through Real Estate to find out more about what we do and what we offer. Thanks so much, and we'll see you next time.